Hey, everybody, welcome to the John DeVito Show. I hope everyone is having a great day. It's kind of a rainy, drizzly day here in Massachusetts, and bear with me. I've got the hiccups, so hopefully these don't follow me through the entire podcast, which they might. But hey, I'm a guy, like I've said, with my headphones and a cell phone. I'm in my car right now waiting for my son's track meet to start. So I don't want to go in yet. So I figured I'd do a quick 15-minute podcast before I go into the building, and hopefully the audio is going to be good and all that good stuff. So, and there goes one of the hiccups. So it looks like I'm going to be battling these through this podcast. So I apologize. Maybe one of you guys can scare me like really loud, and maybe that'll stop them from happening. But I had to get on today and do a podcast about the New Hampshire primary. As a lot of you know, I was up in New Hampshire last week. I went to my first ever presidential rally, and I saw Donald J. Trump in Atkinson, New Hampshire, at the Atkinson Country Club. And I actually grew up in Atkinson, so it was kind of cool to be there and to see my son actually get pulled right up to the front row and sit right in front of Donald Trump as he gave a speech. But I got to say, Nikki Haley ran a very aggressive campaign in the state of New Hampshire. And I think that she probably would have lost by more votes if New Hampshire does not allow people who are independents and even Democrats to vote on the Republican side. So I think you had a lot of people that were not even voting on the Democratic side that were jumping over to the Republican side and voting against Trump. Now, Biden was not on the ballot in New Hampshire. And that's something I want to kind of talk about a little bit today. But first, before I get into that, let's celebrate a Trump win. My Trump people out there, right? It's about time that Donald Trump is finally getting the opportunity to fight back against the tyranny that cheated him out of the election back in 2020. And we all know it's true. For anyone that listens to my show, you know where I stand. We all believe that Donald Trump, the election was stolen from him. And I'm sorry, if you think that Joe Biden, good old Dementia Joe, got 81 million votes, then I've got some nice oceanfront property I'd like to sell you in the middle of Texas. So, to me, it's just insane that people believe this fallacy. And I think almost it's one of those things where it's kind of like, when you think about the O.J. Simpson murder case, I mean, O.J. did it. Pretty much everyone knows that he did it, but, a certain segment of the population, goes along with the fact that it was some type of justice that Simpson got off after years and years of people feeling that, black people were treated unfairly. So that being said, I think in this case also, I think that a lot of people know that Biden cheated. I think a lot of people know that Biden did not get 81 million votes, but they continue to go along with the fallacy and pretend like, Trump was the one that was, pulling this insurrection, as they said, which is still absolutely ridiculous because we all know that this was, run by the government. We saw Ray Epps on site. We saw the Capitol Police allowing protesters into the building. They were filing in single file. I mean, it was just such a joke that this was blown up to what it was. Now, was it a wonderful day for American history? No, but this is not what they made it out to be. And certainly it pales in comparison to the riots of the summer of 2020, the George Floyd riots. But you know me, I get off on tangents. I don't want to get off too far in a tangent. But one of the things that drives me crazy about New Hampshire, and it's not just New Hampshire, it's Maine and Colorado, is that we have states that are making the decision to pull leading candidates off of ballots. Now, in Colorado and Maine, they pulled Trump off the ballot. The communist up in Maine there, Shenna Bellows, the Secretary of State that was placed into office by the legislature, she was never voted in, removed Trump from the ballot, even though he is by far the leading vote getter on the Republican side. Now, the Democratic situation in New Hampshire is interesting because now there really wasn't anybody that was politically motivated in New Hampshire to get Biden off the ballot. What happened was the Democrats tried to remove New Hampshire as the first primary in the nation because they felt like if they had South Carolina as the first primary, it would represent a more diverse look at the population in America. So it was kind of like a racist move against New Hampshire. And I got to say, I think that the Democratic machine, the American government, the elites, whatever you want to call them, underestimated the power and the resolve of people from New Hampshire. Now, I grew up in New Hampshire. New Hampshire is a phenomenal place to live. It's a great state with wonderful people and people that dig their heels in, and they are not going to bend. They're not going to bend. They're not going to break. People in New Hampshire have their principles and they stick with them. And that's one of the things that makes New Hampshire, ooh, excuse me, sorry about that, such a great place to live. That's right, the John DeVito Show, complete with hiccups today. Enjoy. That was a good loud one. I'm trying to keep the other ones in. But anyway, so in New Hampshire, the Democratic ticket pulled Biden off the ballot because New Hampshire refused to give up their number one in the country primary. So could you imagine that? The Democrats bit off their nose to spite their own face and pulled their own candidate off the ballot so the people in New Hampshire could not vote for Joe Biden in the New Hampshire primary. I mean, to me, that is insanity. And we need to do something in this country to ensure that our elections are secure. And one of the things that we have to do is, I believe, you need to have the leading candidate on the ballots. I'm sorry, but this new push now to remove people from the ballots is absolutely ridiculous. So hopefully we will find a way to get past this and make sure in future elections, leading candidates are actually on the ballot. I mean, you talk about suppressing the vote and fixing the vote. I mean, that right there is a primary example of that. Now, there's another thing that I've been thinking about also the last couple of days. I don't know how you all feel about this, but I don't know how I feel about people dropping out of the race. Now, you look at the Republican side of things. You had Vivek Ramaswamy, who I did not like until I saw him speak in Atkinson. The man is a beast. I loved him. And I would love to see Trump make him his vice president. But then you had after him, Ron DeSantis dropped out. And then you still got Nikki Haley in the race. And she is being destroyed for staying in the race. I don't know. I mean, the way I look at it is, so far we've had the Iowa caucus and the New Hampshire primary. The caucus isn't even considered to be a primary, so the New Hampshire really is the first primary. So the other 48 states have had no voice yet in the process. And right now there's a lot of pressure on having all other candidates drop out of the race. Now, doesn't it seem fair? Now, even though I'm a Trump guy and I want Trump to win and I believe he's going to win, I don't think Haley's going to win a state if she stays in. Shouldn't the candidates be required to stay the course during the primaries? I mean, in the People's Republic of Massachusetts, where I now live, I think we get to vote on Super Tuesday, March 5th. By the time that comes around, our vote's dead. It won't even matter because it's going to be Trump versus Biden. So really, people in the vast majority of the country are not getting a chance to support the person they feel should be president and vote for them. And I personally think that's wrong. So even though Never Nikki is getting a lot of heat right now for not dropping out of the race, I mean, quite frankly, I don't blame her. She's got her own home state of South Carolina coming up. I think Trump's going to beat her there also. But I don't understand why there is such a pressure to end this thing so quickly. I mean, the primary should have some meaning. And you never know what happens halfway through the race. I mean, you could have, the tide change sometime in March. I mean, you don't know. I mean, it's probably not going to happen. But I think we owe it to the American people to allow the whole thing to play out with everybody remaining. So I'm thinking that if you're getting into the presidential race, you need to remain on the ballots throughout the entire primary. I mean, if you run out of money, it is what it is. You can't campaign anymore. And I think that's one of the big problems when you look at DeSantis and Vivek and now Haley. The donors start cutting back their money because they don't think there's a chance to win and they don't want to throw their money away. And that's one of the things I saw even with Nikki Haley today. One of the big donors that she has was kind of like a Democratic donor, not a Republican donor. Kind of funny that she's a Republican. But they are now suspending their donations to the Haley campaign. And it was funny. I saw a guy I know up in New Hampshire who was going through his mail for 2 days. And he posted this picture on Facebook. I'm not going to share his name. But he showed that in a 2-day span in New Hampshire, he got 15 different pieces of mail for Nikki Haley in his mailbox. 15 pieces in 2 days. I mean, to me, if I'm in New Hampshire, that would annoy the living hell out of me, and that would turn me against voting, not encourage me to vote more. It reminds me back in the day when we didn't have all the different forms of internet that we have now, and when you had online, you had America Online. Do you remember going into every post office, and there were like 500 CDs for America Online in there? You'd get them in the mail. You'd have them everywhere. You'd have America Online CDs coming out of your ears back in the day, and that's kind of what the advertising looked like from the Nikki Haley campaign. Oh, so again, I will apologize for my rampant hiccups that started as soon as I started this podcast. Hopefully, they're not driving you crazy, but at least I'm not sniffling like crazy today. I get colds and allergies and everything else. So I don't have a fancy editing person, or when I'm in my car, I don't have a mute button either, so I can't block these things out, unfortunately. But I feel this is a podcast that I wanted to do today. So, with all that stuff being said, after everything that Donald J. Trump has been up against the last several years, he won. He's won Iowa. He won New Hampshire. And I believe if all things are fair going through the rest of the primary and into the presidential election, we are going to be looking at Donald Trump as the next president of the United States in November. And we can start the healing process in the United States of America. We still have an open border, right? Texas, in an absolutely ballsy move by Governor Abbott, shut down the border with the Texas National Guard. And Biden now is doing everything in his power to send the feds back in, to rip down the barbed wire and destroy the work that Abbott is doing to protect his own state. So, we hear things about, Ron Johnson, the Speaker of the House, is going to be demanding the borders closed before he passes a budget where we can give another couple quadrillion dollars to Ukraine so they can all have, Mercedes Benz and mansions, I guess, over there. But I mean, the bottom line is, when you look at what's happening at the border, Governor Abbott took steps and Biden is still trying to destroy that. So what we're seeing at the border is not mismanagement. It is doing exactly what the Democrats want. They're bringing in these people that don't belong in our country. They're not seeking asylum. They're illegal aliens. They are illegal. And I saw something on the news in Boston the other day that literally at Logan Airport in Boston, the major airport in the city of Boston, they have now illegals sleeping in the airport. So the governor of Massachusetts wants the fine citizens of Massachusetts to take illegals into their homes. We don't know who these people are. They could be sex traffickers. They could be terrorists. They could be rapists. But you know what? Welcome them in with your 4 kids and let them maybe sleep on the couch or share your bedroom, your extra bedroom with little Johnny. I mean, are you kidding me? So some of the things that we're seeing in this country right now are just over the top insane. This is what the Biden regime promised us. They've delivered. This is all policy of the World Economic Forum, Soros, Schwab, and the rest of these, worldwide globalist Nazis that are intent on destroying this country and this world. So, for all of us, we need to get Trump back in office. He's well on his way, but I am honestly concerned that Trump will either get cheated out of the election again, or, God forbid, they could try something more sinister. They could try something to eliminate Donald Trump from existence. And man, if we see that happen, I am fearful of what's going to happen in this country, because that would be something that would set off the powder keg, I believe, in the United States of America. So I pray that doesn't happen. And I pray every day that Donald J. Trump comes back into office as the president of the United States, as he should have been in 2020 when he won that election and it was fraudulently stolen from him. So I'll tell you, being in New Hampshire last week for that primary and being in the same room with Trump was an electric experience. To experience a presidential primary speech like that was amazing. If you have the opportunity where you live to do so, I would highly recommend it. It was an amazing experience. I brought my son. He had a great day. And just to be there, being a part of how this country works, even right now, if many of us feel like it's broken, was an amazing experience and one I would not trade for the world. So, ladies and gentlemen, Trump won New Hampshire. Trump won Iowa. We're looking good going into the next few. We got South Carolina coming up. And if he beats Nikki Haley in South Carolina, she's not going to beat him anywhere. But she should have the right to stay in the race. I don't agree with bad-mouthing her until she drops out. I don't really get that whole tactic and why that's even a thing. But anyway, that's all I really had to say today. This is a quick podcast. I haven't done one in a couple of days. I may come back and do another one tonight. My son has baseball practice tonight, and I'll be sitting in the parking lot in my car for about an hour and a half. And you can only sit there for so long. So I might whip out another podcast later on tonight. So for everybody that tuned into my show today, thank you so much. God bless America. God bless President Trump. I hope all of you have a wonderful day, and I appreciate each and every one of you across the United States and this world that tunes into my podcast. As I've told all of you, I wish I could shake all of your hands, give you all a fist bump. I love all of you. But thank you for everything you're doing, supporting my show. and we together are going to take this world back. I love you and thank you for tuning into the John DeVito Show.